Hello listeners and viewers. Welcome to Kaduna State Ministry of Education Radio and TV e-learning program designed for our SS3 and other students staying at home due to the coronavirus pandemic. The present administration, under the able leadership of His Excellency, Malam Nasir Ahmed El-Rufai, is positioned as always to ensure that under his leadership, our students are not left behind in all areas of human endeavors, especially education. Kaduna State is the center of learning. Therefore, we want to ensure that our students excel in their forthcoming examinations and beyond. Students and other learners at home are given this opportunity in order to continue learning, as education is a continuous process. Different subjects will be taught in this program to assist students to perform excellently in the forthcoming Senior School Certificate examination being conducted by NECO and WAEC as soon as schools reopen. Teachers making presentations will always provide their names and phone numbers during each presentation, and they can be contacted for questions, further explanations, and/or clarifications. The following numbers and contacts can also be reached for expression of any concern or observation: 090-865-00545 or 080-383-62072. Our website is www.education.kdsg.gov.ng. Our email education@kdsg.gov.ng or education.kdsg@gmail.com. Our YouTube channel, Ministry of Education, Kaduna State. Our Twitter handle @Kaduna_MOE. Or our Facebook page, Ministry of Education, Kaduna State. Stay safe, stay at home, and learn well. Thank you, happy listening, and happy viewing.
Good day, students at home. You are welcome to another platform on e-learning program, Kaduna State. I'm Blessing Ayuba Samson. I'm here today to present to you a topic in continuation, public sector accounting. In our previous lesson, I made a definition of public sector accounting. I also gave examples of users of public sector accounting, the purposes of public sector accounting, and I gave you the distinction between public sector accounting and commercial accounting. Today, I'm presenting to you the sources of revenue for public sector accounting. Sources of government revenue, which is a part of public sector accounting. There are three levels of government, which are the federal, the state, and the local government. The sources of revenue will be analyzed on the basis of level of government. When we say the basis of the level, starting by the federal government. Sources of revenue, sources of federal government revenue. One of the sources of federal government revenue is direct taxes. And direct taxes are taxes where the burden of payment is borne by the taxpayer directly. Direct taxes are taxes where burden of payment is borne by the taxpayer directly. That is, the taxpayer knows what he is paying for and sees what he or she is paying for, which includes personal income tax. Personal income tax are salaries, remunerations of workers. Then we have the company income tax. Every company in a country, in a state, they pay their corporate tax. And this corporate tax is paid to the federal government. It's a way of federal government deriving revenue. Then we have the petroleum tax, which is under the direct tax. Then the capital gain tax. What is a capital gain tax? Capital gain tax are taxes where certain assets are being sold and profit realized on these assets. The federal government take part of the tax as a source of revenue. Such of these are stocks or bonds and some properties. Then we have secondly, the indirect taxes. Indirect taxes, these are taxes where the burden of payment is borne by the consumer of goods and services. Indirect taxes is where the burden of payment is borne by the consumer of goods and services. When we buy things, we might not even know. In the direct taxes, you know what you are being taxed for. But here, taxes are already deducted before the goods are being sold to consumers. One of these taxes are import duties. Import duties, where goods that come into this country are taxed, they pay tax. Then we have the export duties, goods sent out of the country. Tax is deducted from goods sent out of the country. Then we have the tariffs, which is also a custom duty, where a list of taxes are paid on some goods. Then we have the excise duties, which is goods that are produced in a country and consumed in that country. Taxes are paid on excise duties, which are goods produced in a country and consumed in that country. Thirdly, we have the royalty, which can also be mining. The royalty, which can also be mining, it relates to gas and oil revenue. Royalty relates to gas and oil revenue. Students, you will know that our main source of income is the oil, is the gas, and taxes are paid on these royalties. And federal government tends to gain their revenue through royalties, which includes revenue from oil sales. When oil is being sold to other countries, taxes are being deducted or revenue are being gotten from the sales of oil. Then we have quarrying licenses. What is quarrying? Quarrying is where you see before you can go on to be a producer or bringing stones. If you go around, you see some rocks. People hit the rocks, and there's an owner that will pay licenses to have access to that stone. And this license that he pays goes to the federal government. Then we have the mining fees, where we extract mineral resources. These are also sources of revenue to the federal government. Then we have fees. Number 4, fees. These are revenues from court fees. From court fees. There are certain fees that are charged when you go to court to make an affidavit, marriage, and all these are sources of revenue to the federal government. We have the passport fees, the visa fees, and the advertisement fees. We have court fees, passport fees, visa fees, and advertisement fees. All of these are sources of revenue to the federal government. Then we have fifthly, earnings and sales. Earnings and sales. These are revenue from investment of government in companies. These are revenues from investment in government in some companies. These companies, they sell government properties. Government invests in this company to carry out the selling of some of their properties. For example, lands, buildings, and proceeds from prison farms. Sales of government properties, for example, lands, buildings, and proceeds from prison farms. When we say prison farms, in the prison, most of the prisoners are engaged into different entrepreneurship. And when they farm in the government land, what they sell, the proceeds goes to the account or serves as a revenue to the federal government. Number 6, licenses and internal revenue. Licenses and internal revenue, which includes arms and ammunition licenses fees, registration and license fees. For example, registration of company Each company, before they can operate as a company, they must pay a registration fee to the federal government. Then we have club registration. Before a club can embark on any clubbing activity, they must pay a registration fee. Then we have the church registration fee, and so on and so forth. Then we have number 7, rent on government properties. Rent on government properties, which includes income from rent of government quarters. Most staffs that stay in the quarters of government, the quarters, the buildings that have been built by the federal government, they are charged rent from their salary, and that rent is a source of revenue to the government in order for them to renovate or build more quarters. Then we have rent of government vehicles. Rent of government vehicles. The government vehicles are being rented for activities even by private organizations, which serves as a source of revenue. Then we have rent of government offices. Rent of government offices. Government build offices in all parts of a state, and private individuals use those offices as business places, and they pay their rent to the government, which is also a source of revenue to the government. Then we have federal government lands fee. Federal government lands fee. Then we have number 8, miscellaneous. These are revenue derived from other sources apart from the sources that I've listed above. These are revenues derived from other sources. 1, money recovered from drug pushers. Money recovered from drug pushers. Any drug pushers that goes into all these insulate hats selling drugs, cocaine. If it's being caught, they pay a certain fine. They pay a certain fine to the federal government for pushing drugs. Then we have money recovered from looted offices. Money recovered from looted offices. You can see in this regime, a lot of money has been recovered from looted offices. Some politicians, when they handle offices, if they are giving revenue, they tend not to carry out what they are told to do with the money. And when another regime comes, like I said, this regime, you find that a lot of looted funds have been recovered, e.g. the Abacha Fund. Then we go on to the sources of revenue of state government. State government is a second tier of government. State government is a second tier of government. I told you we'll follow them at their level. The state government as a second tier of government are empowered to generate revenue. They are empowered to generate revenue apart from what the federal government allocates to them. They have a statutory allocation from the federal government each month, but they too generate their own revenue. And some of their source of revenue are income tax, fees from courts, licenses of car, motorcycle, vehicles, licenses of car. If you are in a state and you have a car for business, for private use, you have to purchase license, and it's a source of revenue to the state government. Then we have interest and repayment of loans granted to workers. Interest and repayment of loans granted to workers. When you are working as a civil servant, you apply for a loan from the state government. Whatever interest is coming in goes to the state government as an increment to their revenue. Then we have rent on government properties. Rent on government properties. For example, government quarters, government offices. All these are sources of revenue to the state government. Then we have the third tier of government, which is the local government. The local government also generates revenue. They are also giving allocation from the federal government, but they also have their sources of revenue. One, we have special grants. Special grants. The grants can be from private organizations. The grants can also be from federal or state government. Donations from private, states, and also federal government. Then we have the tenement rates. We have the tenement rates. What is a tenement rate? A tenement rate is where landlords, owners of property, pay fines to local governments, or occupiers of buildings pay fines to the local government. Then we have fines, for example, court fines, renewal of licenses, renewal of licenses. For example, we have the radio and the television. Before you can carry on radio and television activity, you must have a license, and timely, yearly, monthly, or annually, you have to renew your licenses, and this is also a source to local government revenue. Then we have park collection. We have the park collection. What is a park collection? Most times when you want to go to Zaria, to Kano, to Jos, to Lagos, there are parks that you go to. Those parks pay revenue to the local government. We have some that are not listed here. We have the signboard. Signboard, what is a signboard? Before you can erect a signboard, doing your business, your activities, you pay for signboard fines. We also pay for market. We have a market fines. There are ways of revenue to the local government. Then we have definition of some terms. Under the public sector accounting, Consolidated Revenue Fund is one of the terms. This is a fund that was established by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. All revenues received are paid into this fund. Consolidated Revenue Fund. This fund was established by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and all revenues that are received are paid into this fund, with an exception of revenues set aside for other funds. What are those that are set aside? Salaries and allowances of statutory officers. Who are the statutory officers? We have the Auditor General, the Chief Judge, pension and gratuity. They are all paid from the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Then number 2, Federation Fund. This fund was established by the Civil Service and Local Government Decree of 1988. Income that comes into this account are direct taxes, indirect taxes, mining, or royalties. You can see that number 1 and number 2, there is a difference. The fund that comes into the Consolidated Revenue Fund is an establishment by the Constitution of the Federal Republic, while the Federation Fund is established by the Civil Service and the Local Government Decree. Then number 3, Development Fund. Development Fund. It is established by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The purpose of this fund is for capital development. It's for capital development projects. Every capital development project, the fund is in the development fund. And examples are roads, airports, seaport, electricity, pipe-borne water, maintenance of prisons, police stations, barracks, and loan to state for capital projects. Development fund is established by the federal, in the Constitution. It is in the Constitution. It is a law. It is for capital projects. And some of these projects are roads, seaport, electricity, maintenance of prisons, police stations, barracks, and loan to state government for capital projects. State government might not have enough revenue to carry on a capital project. So the federal government takes from its development fund and assists the state government as a loan to be able to carry out that project. Then we have number 4, which is the contingency fund. contingency fund. This is a fund. This fund is also established by the Constitution to take care of unforeseen expenses and national disaster. Urgent and unforeseen expenses and national disaster. Contingency fund. It is a fund established in the Constitution to take care of urgent and unforeseen expenses. Sometimes in the country, like what is happening now, there's an urgent need to take money in order to prevent the spread of this virus. And most times, a contingency fund is where this money is taken from. Even in times of Boko Haram, you find out that contingency fund is where you can apply, because a warrant, you need a warrant for any fund to be released. And the fund to be released is from the Consolidated Revenue Fund. All revenues are in the Consolidated Revenue Fund. And when you want to take money, when money is supposed to be required for contingency fund, a warrant is given saying and authorizing that fund should be released to a certain place that needs this help. And a certain amount is being written or signed upon. So, Development Fund is an establishment by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The purpose of this fund is for capital projects. What are capital projects? They are projects like roads, airports, seaports, electricity, pipe bomb water, maintenance of prison, police stations, barracks, and loan to state government for their own capital projects. Then we have contingency fund. This fund is also established by the Constitution to take care of urgent and unforeseen expenses and national disaster. Sources of revenue from Consolidated Revenue Fund. That is, their sources of revenue is from the Consolidated Revenue Fund. How can they get this revenue? They need a warrant, which is a contingency warrant, will be released transferring the amount required. In summary, I gave you the sources of government revenue, and I told you we have 3 tiers of government, which are the federal, the state, and the local governments. I listed how they get their revenues. And I went to define some terms: consolidated, federation, and contingency fund. This is the end of the lesson. I'm leaving you with this assignment. And I have seen most of your questions and most of your assignments, and I've answered some of you. And I'm appreciating you that you are watching us and you are replying us. And I want to say thank you, students. Our assignment for today is number 1, list 3 sources of revenue from each of the 3 tiers of government. List 3 sources of revenue from each of the 3 tiers of government. Then, number 2, give a brief explanation on contingency fund. 2, give a brief explanation on contingency fund. I repeat, list 3 sources of revenue from each of the 3 tiers of government. Number 2, give a brief explanation on contingencies fund. When you answer the assignments or you have any question whatsoever, send your messages through my WhatsApp number or my phone number, which is 081-8269-2515. I repeat, 081-8269-2515. I'm Mrs. Blessings Ayuba Samson. Stay home, stay safe, and keep learning. Thank you, and God bless you.